So I'm here with Dennis the Menace Frimpong. Dennis by name, Dennis Menace by name, Menace by nature. So obviously we all know what you, Armand, Aaron, Matthew Elliott, obviously Paddy and Shem as coaches. What you're all doing in Octagon Challenge. Obviously, we don't know the results. We can't know the results. But I just want to get a couple of your thoughts on what happened in there. So how was it being brought together for something like this? It's pretty cool. And how was it like being put against one, a former opponent, and two other fighters from the country to make Team Ireland?
So yeah, like first of all, obviously I never got to do an IMAF and represent my country in the sport and like fly the tricolour and represent my home nation, you know. So that side of it was a big part of why I decided to do it. It was an opportunity, obviously, and what better country to do it against than fucking England? You know what I mean? The colonizers, the most hated country in the world.
Which you can't
So
really.
yeah, yeah, you know, hey, look, I live in Manchester. I don't live in England, but yeah, you know, it was a good opportunity. I was straight onto it once I got told about it. And obviously when I heard about some of the people that were going to be on, that excited me as well. You know, potentially having to fight a former opponent again. Obviously, like, you know, I won the fight, so I didn't really think too much of it. And we'd kind of been sound with each other since then. So, oh my god, we'd kind of been sound with each other since then. So, yeah, it wasn't like I knew there wasn't going to be any sort of tension. Like we'd kind of been friendly after our fight. We kind of squashed the beef. You know what I mean? Once you've spent 3 rounds in the cage with someone, you sort of you gain a certain level of respect. You know what I mean, for each other. So
It's mad. After you fight each other, and you see this with all fighters, they usually become like that. They're friendly with each other. You see some fighters become great friends after. Do you think that's a magical thing about MMA? Because I think it's so mad. If me and you went out and had a fight in the street, we probably never talk. But when you do it in the cage, it's probably because you know the process that you've gone through to get there, is it?
yeah, exactly. We know that we're both in it for the same reason. Like we're part of like less than 1% of the world that do this sport. So we probably have more. I probably have more in common with any of my opponents than I do any other random person that walks down the street. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it was look, I mean certain opponents I'm probably never going to be friends with, you know what I mean? I don't think me and Chris Morris will ever be mates.
I don't
As
think.
much as I'd like to be mates with him, you know what I mean? I think he's a cool guy. But no, I don't think he ever wants to be mates with me, mate. I think it got a little bit too personal on that one. But yeah, other than that, mate, I'm fairly like all right with any of my former opponents. You know what I mean? Once we spent time in there together. I also feel like he didn't really gain my respect, Chris Morris. He got knocked the fuck out, didn't he? He didn't even get to the final bell. So
Yeah, no, that was. You said a bit personal. It sounded like maybe you regretted your actions at the time, but I don't think that would be you because from
nah,
from
I
knowing.
don't regret anything, mate. Um, it, you know, I went personal and that was it. You know what I mean? He had every option to knock me out. He had every option to finish me and embarrass me. In the end, make me look like a dickhead, but instead he looked like a dickhead for not standing up for his mum. So
Jesus Christ, you're always that. Also with Team England, there was someone in there as well that you've been calling for quite a while, I believe. Teddy Stringer.
ah
Yeah.
nah, Teddy Stringer and me are cool now. You know, we had a grappling match, we had a bit of a chat, and he's actually all right. I wanted to still have a fight with him in the cage, but we never materialized. Don't think it will materialize in the near future anyway. George Staines it was, mate.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, young boy George. So yeah, I have been calling for him for a while. I actually have you know, I've been messaging him, DMing him for about a year, I'd say, since even before Chris Morris. You know, whenever he was ranked number one in the UK and Ireland, and he hadn't fought for like time. There was a stage he hadn't fought for months, and he was still ranked number one. And I was like calling him out and being like, look, like you have to fucking defend it. If you're gonna call yourself number one, have it in your fucking Instagram bio, like I'm number one mixed martial artist in UK and Ireland. You've got to fucking back it up. You've got to defend it and all. Like if I was number one, mate, if I was a champion in any promotion, I defend against anyone. I defend against all, like, anyone can get it at that point. I'm like, I have to prove that I'm number one. You know what I mean? I have to prove that I'm still number one, because it's not what you've done, it's what you've done. What have you done lately? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's one of them. But yeah, I got to finally meet him in the flesh, see him face to face. He got to experience what I'm like as a person. So yeah.
I can't wait for that. And there's one thing I just want to touch on what you said. Obviously, he was number one. He hadn't fought in a while. And I seen something that John Jones said recently. So obviously you're of the same opinion. Someone asked him, does he think he should be ranked pound for pound number one? And he said, no, he thinks either Alex or Islam should be, because they've been the one more actively fighting. Is that the way you see it? If you're going to be the top dog, you can't be the top dog and then take months off, and you have to defend what you own. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people that claim number one, this and that. But you've got to back it up. You've got to back it up against the best as well. You can't just be fighting number 15 and still saying you're number one. You know what I mean? You can't be 12-0 fighting a 1-0 guy with no grappling and then going to decision with him and saying you're number one. Do you know what I mean? You can't be fighting shit guys. You've got to fight the guys that are ranked 2 through 10. Do you know what I mean? And beat them guys, and then you can really say you're number one. But the fact of the matter is, George swerved me. He swerved Curtis Campbell. He swerved a couple other fights in that top rank there, and that's it.
yeah, 100%. So who was actually on the team from the UK? If I can't remember exactly, because I was obviously
The
only.
English team, the English team. So they actually only had 2 English fighters on the team. In fact, I'd argue that they only had one English fighter on the team, which was George. You know what I mean? They had a Frenchman slash Congolese guy called Hassan Galezi from GB Top Team. They had 2 Scousers who are basically Irish. Do you know what I mean? They had Jake McHugh and they had Bo Gavin. Now, they might as well be Irish, them lads. You know what I mean? So they should have swapped the fucking kit and got our green kit. You know what I mean? So yeah, George James is the only real Englishman on that team.
Yeah, and I like what you said there with the Scout and the Irish. Obviously we both know Shem and we both know Scouts or whatever. It's a very similar kind of personalities, very similar. And what was the reaction to, obviously Shem was over coaching Team Ireland. What was the reaction to that from the English?
So yeah, there was a bit of stick given. But I think real Scousers do not consider themselves English. They consider themselves Scouse. They hate the Queen just as much as we do. And it runs deeper than just a cultural thing and like a banter thing that were similar. I mean, bro, most of them have Irish blood in them. Do you know what I mean? They're only a generation or two removed from being fully Irish. The Irish built Liverpool. So yeah. I think Shem was the only one that made a true Scouse decision and decided to don the tricolour, which is noble of him. And obviously him being Jake McHugh's teammate and him being on the other team, there was a bit of weirdness there as well. But it is what it is.
I can imagine there was. So talk to me about the coaching team. Obviously you had Paddy Houlihan and Shem. You're quite close with Shem before the Octagon Challenge. But Paddy Houlihan is obviously, for Irish people or people in MMA, we've seen him all at shows. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's like a man of the people in Ireland. He's obviously a politician trying to change things for the better in Ireland. How did you find them two as a dynamic, and how did you find Paddy?
So obviously, I'd only really met Paddy a couple of times just at different shows and stuff like that. Yeah, I know. I know about all the stuff he does with the politics and that. Like, he's really trying to change things. Like you say, he's a real working class hero. Like, as cliche as that sounds, a real man of the people. Really trying to, get these lizards out of power in the doll. But as well as that, just before that, even mate, he's a guy that, like, when Connor was coming up, he was coming up. He was in the UFC. You know what I mean? He was someone that I watched when I first got into MMA. Like, first started like training martial arts myself and that, like, and first started noticing that there was Irish MMA. So he was like one of the first, like, an Irish MMA pioneer. Like, would have been like Connor, him, Neil Seary, Joe Duffy, Artem later on. You know what I mean? And like Cathal Pendred and these kind of guys. They were like the pioneers. So to have him as a coach and like have him like coaching me, commenting on different bits I do well, different bits I don't do well, and you know what I mean, just fixing up little things. It was just really good. It was surreal, mate, to be honest. It was really surreal.
That's good because like that, Paddy, you can see how much fights when his fighters are in the corner, you can see how much it actually means to him. Because I'd see him nearly every show I go to. But like that, what kind of an atmosphere was there with Team Ireland? Was it just you were all together, all united, even with the potential of potentially facing each other in that might get weird. Obviously, we can't say, but that might get weird if that's what it comes to. But were you just focusing on what was ahead of you straight away?
Yeah, so the way that the show was set up, obviously I can't give too much away, but yeah, there was a real team unity. We actually used the classic British tactics against them. We divided and we conquered. Do you know what I mean? We used divide and conquer. We were a team unit, and we seen that like they weren't, they weren't the same. They didn't have the same level of camaraderie that we had. So obviously me particularly, and the rest of the lads, we played on that. And don't get her twisted. Like the rest of the Irish lads, they can shit talk too. Do you know what I mean? Like I might just take it a notch above, and I might go a bit beyond what most people are willing to say. But Matthew Elliott's called the boogeyman for a reason, Aaron McDonald, he's well able for the shit talk as well. We've seen that in the build up to mine in his fight. And Armand as well, mate. He's, people might look at him and think certain things, but like he's really about it, mate. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's gonna be a good show. It's gonna be a good show. It's not just me. Just to put it into context, that was shit talking. Like I might have just gone a bit further than everyone else.
That wouldn't be like it at all, Dennis, I must say. Wouldn't be like it. But what can we expect from this? Because it is the first time running. When I heard about this, I was like, this sounds amazing. Obviously, with the Oktagon, they've really come in and they're really like they're pushing Shem, obviously, as you see. And they're really trying to make a mark. And with this, the way this happened, it is pretty cool. Like, what can we expect? So all the boys are shit talking to all the English. Like, is it going to be a very, very fun watch?
Oh, listen, I don't know if you've been watching The Ultimate Fighter this last season. I've found it a bit dead, to be honest. I think it's like one of the shitter seasons of The Ultimate Fighter I've ever seen. Obviously Connor's like 0-7 now, as far as the fights are gone. But like, I just feel like he's lost that bit of sharpness to his tongue. It's gone a bit rusty. You know what I mean? He's just a bit, yeah. I don't know. This is going to be another level, and obviously they have the added dynamic of like the team challenges and stuff like that. So, yeah, the producers that are doing this show, they come from a reality TV background, so they know how to put a show together. I don't know if you've seen some of the stadium shows in Oktagon that they've done in Eastern Europe and Germany and stuff like that. They're doing like 20,000 seater stadiums, 22,000 sold out seater stadiums, families coming and watching and all. You know what I mean? It's not just a load of drunk lads. So yeah, it's gonna be proper good. And then branching out into this market, you know what I mean? Obviously the L Arena, 18,000 seater, I believe biggest MMA arena in the UK, like biggest indoor MMA arena in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously they probably have big plans for future shows in London, Birmingham, Dublin, at some point. And I really do think that they're gonna take over, and they're gonna show the likes of Cage Warriors and these kind of guys that they're on the way out. You know what I mean? I think people are just kind of not sick of Cage Warriors, but it's all that there is. There's no competition. You need healthy competition for there to, like, if there was just McDonald's, people get sick of McDonald's. You need there to be Burger King, KFC, Subway, and all that for it to be healthy competition. Because then they all compete against each other. They all have to up their game. Do you know what I mean? So as a result, I think Cage Warriors will have to up their game. Do you know what I mean? I think PFL Europe will have to up their game. Bellator Europe will have to up their game. Let's just be honest. Bellator Europe's the SBG show at this point. So yeah, I'll give another platform for Irish fighters and UK fighters other than SBG guys actually get fights on big shows.
Yeah, no, it is good, and I hope it does do that because I don't know, you might not be old enough to remember. I used to watch wrestling, so the WWE and WCW went against each other, the Monday Night Wars, and it just propelled both of them to just get better and better every week. And I hope that does happen because one thing I've noticed about Oktagon is their marketing is actually quite good. You look at the UFC, they're a marketing machine, and then you look at the others, they don't tell the stories quite as good. Whereas I'd say from looking at the Octagon stuff, it looks like they're able to tell. They can take you and someone else, and they can tell a story.
Yeah, because like I say, the guys that run it, they come from a TV background, and sorry, I'm just moving about a bit. Yeah, they come from like they have background in MMA, but they have backgrounds other than MMA, so they really know how to build a narrative, build the story, and like show that we're not just fucking. We are savages, but we're not just fucking savages. Do you know what I mean? When we get out of the cage, there's months and months where we have normal lives. You know what I mean? We have like, I live in a house just like the rest of you. I don't fucking live in a pit under the fucking cage waiting to fucking come out and fight a tiger. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not like we're normal human beings as well, and then like just goes to show that like any normal human being is capable of doing what we're doing if you put the work in and you just dedicate yourself to it. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's what obviously I've interviewed you before, and you've seen the in-depth stuff. That's what I want to try to portray to people. Is it's not that 9 minutes or the 15 minutes in the cage. People have put their lives into this, and like that. Out of 1% of everyone that's in all the gyms are probably dickheads. The 99% are usually humble. You're probably in that 1%.
I'm definitely in that 1%, mate. But no, do you know what? To be fair, I'll give a bit of a thing. Like all the lads in the Irish team, once they actually met me, and spent a bit of time around me, they all said, "Look, like you're actually not as much of a dickhead as people would think." Do you know what I mean? Because like, if I'm not fighting you, if me and you don't have the potential to fight each other, if you're not my weight and you're not a possible opponent, or you haven't signed the contract to fight me, and we're waiting to fight each other, I'm just a normal guy. Like I'm actually probably sounder than most of these other cunts that are all trying to be humble, and like Khabib's probably a dickhead more than me in real life. Do you know what I mean? He's fucking giving people money to do push-ups and all this shit. Homeless guys money to do. I've never done shit like that. Do you know what I mean? I'd give money to a homeless guy just to give him money. Do you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, people have to understand that at the end of the day, like this is show business as well as a sport, and you have to sell a fight. Do you know what I mean? So all these guys that just think, oh, I'm just going to be the quiet samurai. I'm just going to go out and be respectful and all this sort of shit. And yeah, that's all good. But unless you get to 20-0, 30-0, no one gives a fuck, mate. No one gives a fuck. You're just going to be paid 400 quid to fight on some shit show against a killer. Maybe get bet. You know what I mean? Maybe even fight someone like me who's going to talk shit to you. You might beat him and he gets paid more than you. Do you know what I mean? Like, so Colby Covington's a perfect example, mate. Look, he's lost 3 of his last 4 fights. He's fighting for a title. Do you know what I mean? And Bilal Muhammad's there. Oh, I'm a respectful guy. You know what I mean? He's got like an 8 or 7 fight win streak, beating some top 10 guys, and he's not fighting for no title. So if people don't learn from that, then that's their problem, as far as I'm concerned.
Beneil Dariush as well. I think he should, if he talked more, he would have had a shot by now. He wouldn't have to be, oh, you're going to face this guy, then the next one. And one perfect example is obviously you look at, obviously Paddy was your coach, Shauna Bannon, 5-0. She markets herself quite good, and she's in the UFC. Like there's a host of lads that.
I think the women's division's different. I think they market themselves a little bit differently. I'm not going to get into it, but yeah.
But she's got the whole mama be single mother. She markets herself essentially. She's got
a great story. She got a great story behind her, and she, yeah. And she got a skill set that, like, let's be honest, the women's talent pool isn't as deep as lightweight men's. Do you know what I mean? Like featherweight, lightweight, and welterweight men's divisions are stacked. That's the majority of males on the planet, even that don't do MMA, are within those weight categories. So you've got to stand out from those guys. Do you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of good guys out there. You know what I mean? And you're not going to get the opportunities unless you fucking make something different about yourself. Do you know what I mean? obviously, you know, like as a heavyweight man, you can probably win 4 or 5 fights in a row, go UFC. 4 or 5 fights in a row there, you're fighting for a title. Do you know what I mean? Whereas as a lightweight man, you're probably, you know, 15 fights before you get UFC, you know, and then you're probably talking another 10 fights in a row before you fight for a title. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, no, it is like that. You have to like that. You do have to stand out. But I'm gonna let you go in a minute. But I'm gonna get onto. You said obviously with Octagon coming over and like the toss of a potential Dublin show. Is that something you'd love to get on? Because a lot of your fights wouldn't. I don't think any of your fights were in Dublin, were they?
I have never fought in the Republic of Ireland, which is fucking disgraceful considering I'm the best lightweight in Ireland. Um, yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, I'm hoping they get a Dublin show going. I'm gonna push for it anyway. Um, yeah, obviously, you know, there's a certain high-ranking member of Irish MMA that has a bit of a stranglehold on you know, who what shows go where and what shows get to go in Dublin and whatnot. They push that whole safe MMA thing as the reason for it, but we all know it's about money. And yeah, you know, I've ended up as a result having to fight a lot in Northern Ireland and obviously in the UK. But yeah, we will, you know, hopefully with the backing of Octagon behind me, I'll be able to push and get you know, get an Irish show going. Hopefully, I've made enough of an impression on the show that they'll want to push me and you know get me on there.
I bet you have made an impression, and like that, we'd all love to see you fight in Dublin because, like that, I've seen you fight once, I think, and it was at your fighting championship against Solomon. But other than that, because your fights have had to been in different countries, like obviously up north, I wasn't doing it when you first started. I came in just after, so I only got to see you once. So you would have a lot of a fan base here. So that's something I think us and not just media, but I think fans would push more MMA is what we need in the country. We need
Yeah,
more of these top class shows, and
yeah,
hopefully,
we need more than just Cage Warriors and fucking Bellator Europe. Let's be honest, the SBG show, you know. So
yeah.
yeah,
So it's going to be. When does this? Do you have any date on when this airs or anything like that? Just that kind of information.
if I'm not mistaken, it should be airing the start of September. It'll be on the Zone, which is like a pretty big boxing and MMA stream platform, Oktagon TV. And then, as far as I know, there's some rumors in the mill that it's going to be on an even bigger broadcaster. I can't speak too much about that, but I think that should be confirmed in the next week or two. You know, that's what I've heard. That's and that if that gets out, Brian Lacey had just said that on an interview a few days ago. So, you know, I believe that I should be okay to say as much as I'm saying. So, yeah, if it gets on there, mate, it's it's gonna be wild. But yeah, yeah.
Perfect. So I want to thank you very much for your time. I actually can't wait to see this. Because I know what you're like. I've met you in person and me and you get on like a house on fire anyways, but I know what you're like coming out to a fight. I'm like, Dennis, do you think you're crossing the line? And you're there's no line, Dave. There's no
Hey, all I'm saying is, yeah, all my previous opponents have gotten shit talk, but it's all been online. You can just fucking ignore it. Easy to ignore. Do you know what I mean? Easy to block me. If you have blocked me, if you've just ignored me, not opened the messages. But when you're living in the same house as me and you're eating your breakfast and I'm sat at the breakfast table with you, you're in the living room and I'm sat in the living room with you. Do you know what I mean? We're training in the same gym. We're walking past each other every day. We're in the car together. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to get away from. And it's a death by a thousand cuts. Do you know what I mean? It's daily, just daily torment. Every single member of their team at some point lost a head with me, bar one. I'm not going to say who, but yeah, every single one of them at some point during that show, during the filming, lost their head at me. And yeah, it's what I do, you know.
I couldn't think of anything worse for one of your opponents to be in that position, to be with you day in, day out. I could think of him. I would rather go in and clip everyone's toenails with my teeth than have to live in a house with you if I had to fight you. I can't wait to see it. I want to thank you so much for your time. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I'm really looking forward to see how you get on as a team. how the fights go, and just how the camaraderie and everything went, and how Shem and Paddy were, which is really, really exciting. I'm really glad Octagon have done this and that they took Ireland and the England to do it. So I want to thank you for your time. Is there anything you want to say before you go?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, shout out to all my sponsors. Kept me going throughout this whole thing. You know, they're the ones that make it possible for me to even train full time and really dedicate myself. Obviously, while I was away, I wasn't able to do any PTs. I wasn't able to do any work, you know. So obviously they paid us and stuff like that. But while I was away, you know what I mean? Like, you know, you're away. So yeah, shout out to all of them. They can all be seen. They're all tagged on my bio on Instagram. So go check them out. Shout out to Fansview MMA, you know, believed in me from the start, has been there from the start, from the amateur days. Everyone just keep in mind as well, yeah, I have only been training MMA 2 years. I made my amateur debut less than 2 years ago. I believe it was August 2021 on Cage Conflict. So some of these guys have fights going back years and years and have been training their whole lives. So just keep that in mind when you see the show as well. Yeah, there's some banger fights on the show. Yeah, as well as all the drama. Like, forget about the drama. You know, at the end of the day, everyone's here to see the fights, and the fights are all bangers. So can't wait for it to come out. Can't wait for everyone to see it. I hope everyone enjoys it. And then obviously, there's the first Octagon card in the UK and Ireland is going to be on in Manchester. Shamrock's already on it. Obviously, Jake, is it Paul Smith and Jake Quickenden? I'm pronouncing that right. That's going to be on it. The finale of the show is going to be on it, and then as far as I know, everyone from the show is going to be fighting on it. You know, on some level. So that'll be a good show as well. So expect to see a lot of Irish fans over there. It's only like a 30 quid flight over, so yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot cheaper to stay in hotels there than it is to stay here. Let me tell you.
100%, 100%. Why do you think I left? Why do you think I left?
100%. This 300 to spend a night in a hotel. I nearly died.
Yeah, ridiculous.
I pay €100 for a taxi home instead.
Do you know what I mean?
Makes sense. But
yeah, appreciate you having me on anyway, Dave. Yeah, fucking, as I say, you've been there from the start. You're one of the first people that got me on. The first people that got the interview. So, you know, I'll always have time for you. Even when, you know, the bigger people start knocking on the door to ask for interviews, you'll get first preference, lad. Yeah.
My man, absolute gentleman. It's a pleasure to talk to you again. It has been a while. We need to keep it a lot shorter than this and have interviews every couple of months, I'd say.
100%. You need to get me on you need to get me on an in-person one, mate. You've been interviewing some boring, dull cunts, bro. You need to fucking get me on that.